Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josey. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josey. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josey, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing one of their past projects. I will let you decide if it was good or bad or just plain ugly. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is why mastering communication is the landlord's secret weapon. Owning rental properties isn't just about collecting rent and fixing leaky faucets. It's about building real relationships and setting the tone for how your business runs. Communication is the tool that keeps everything running smoothly behind the scenes. When you're clear, proactive, and approachable, problems get solved before they snowball. Here are 5 reasons why every badass landlord needs to master communication. Number 1, prevents unnecessary headaches. Clear communication spells out expectations so there's less room for misunderstandings or disputes down the road. Number 2, builds trust with tenants. When tenants feel heard and informed, they're more likely to respect your property and stay longer. Number 3, speeds up problem solving. Fast, direct responses means maintenance issues and questions get handled quickly, keeping everyone happy. Number 4, boosts your reputation. Word travels fast. Landlords who communicate well stand out, attract better tenants, and get positive reviews. And number 5, strengthens your bottom line. Good communication leads to fewer vacancies, smoother turnovers, and more consistent cash flow. So, don't treat communication as an afterthought. Make it a core part of your landlord toolkit. Whether you're sending updates, responding to concerns, or just checking in, those conversations can make all the difference. Remember, real estate success isn't about the properties you own, but about the connections you build along the way. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. Today, we have Simone Lesko, an Australian-born entrepreneur with a truly global perspective and a knack for reimagining spaces. Simone's journey began with a science degree from the prestigious University of Queensland, followed by a successful start in banking and finance. Her real estate story kicked off after a chance encounter in San Diego led her to the U.S. and ultimately to discovering the power of cash flowing rentals in Cleveland. After scaling a healthcare business to nearly $5 million in Australia, Simone returned to Cleveland and kept her promise to dive into real estate full time. As the owner and creative force behind Moza Homes, she's transformed multiple properties, including the stunning Boomerang Ranch, while proving that real estate can be both artistic and profitable. I am thrilled to finally get her on the show, so welcome, Simone Lesko. Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so thrilled to get you on here. And we first met through Homeschooled by Tarek, which was a coaching program. And we had some coaching calls together, and you always stood out as such an amazing person to begin with, but also so extremely talented. And I just knew you were going to be going places. So it is no surprise that I have you on the show today. So give us a quick little background on you. I want to hear about San Diego, by the way. So.
All right. Well, I wish I had my husband here because he loves telling this story. but I told him he had to go so I could do this. But yeah, I was actually one of my girlfriends was getting married in the US, Australian girlfriends was getting married in the US, and she asked me to be a bridesmaid. And I said, yes, of course. And she was getting married to a man from Iowa, believe it or not. And amongst all my friends, it's just the two of us that have married Americans. But so they were getting married in Vegas. And so I said, yes, absolutely. Me and a group of my other girlfriends, we wanted to make a trip of it. So we planned a 2-week trip in the US, and we had organized, obviously we're going to be in Vegas for the wedding. We wanted to go to Mexico afterwards, but we hadn't figured out what we were going to do in the beginning. So we literally just got a map, closed our eyes, went like that, and it landed on San Diego.
Wow.
And so we flew into LA, we drove to San Diego, and on the first night there, we were going out for some dinner, really jet lagged, went out for some dinner, and then we were walking back to our hotel, and my now husband, and his friend were at the set of lights just before us, and we were standing behind talking in our Australian accents, and he turns around and goes, "Where are you girls from?" And that kind of like started the conversation. And he was trying to invite us to go to this place where there was some live music. And me personally, I was really jet lagged. I was like, I'm just going to go to bed. But one of my girlfriends in particular, she was like, "Oh, he seems really nice. Let's just go see this live music and then we'll just go home." And so anyway, we ended up doing that. And then we just had a really fun time. And coincidentally, the hotel that we were staying at I could literally see his apartment from the hotel.
My goodness.
So we were so close. So we went and saw the music, and then the next day he wanted to catch up, and we caught up, and then we hung out pretty much the whole time in San Diego. And then he, at the time, was working for IHG, Intercontinental Hotels Group. And so he had a portfolio of hotels that he would fly to and do training workshops at. And so he told me, but he said, "Oh, I actually coincidentally have a meeting in Vegas at the time that you're going to be there for the wedding." And so he actually we flew to Vegas, and then he joined us there, and we hung out in Vegas for a bit. And
oh my goodness.
Next thing we know, we're engaged 6 months later, married 12 months later.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So holding that map and circling, it was more, you're pointing at a man in a certain location. Isn't that crazy?
Isn't that crazy? It's such a crazy story. Like, it's so crazy, but that's just what happened. It's wild. And I hope that my children don't do to me what I did to my parents. Like marrying an American man, and then my husband's parents were like, "You're marrying this Australian woman. This is never going to work." But meanwhile,
hilarious.
we're almost 15 years later, 3 children.
Yes. Yeah. And very happy.
Very happy.
So how did you end up in Cleveland?
So my husband is originally from Cleveland.
Okay.
So we were in San Diego, and then we wanted to go to Cleveland to be near his family for a couple of years. My husband's job was he could really live anywhere because he would fly to the hotels to do the workshops. And so then we wanted to be closer to his family. And then after Cleveland, we continued on to Atlanta for a little bit, and then back to Australia for a while, and then back to Cleveland.
How long were you in Australia with him?
It was almost 5 years.
And then you created this company, and you ended up selling it, or how?
Yeah, so it was a home healthcare business, community healthcare business, and started it from nothing, and then grew it. It grew a lot, and then my husband joined me because it was growing so much. So he quit his job and he joined me, and then together we scaled it to a almost $5 million a year revenue business. Wow. So that was a hectic almost 4 years it was that I did the business. Very hectic. I had our third child in there somehow. Oof. Can't remember, like, because it was a 7-day-a-week job, 24/7. It was very hectic. So, wow. But then so we did that, and then we sold that at the end of 2021, and then relocated back to Cleveland.
And then I got to meet you through Tarek. So. Yeah. Now, you also have rentals, though, in Cleveland.
Yes.
How many rentals do you have?
3.
Okay, very good. Yep. And then you started flipping houses as well. So what came first? Were you buying the rentals or were you flipping? What was going on there?
So rentals came first. I literally bought the first duplex from Australia.
Oh, and you house hacked that one, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So bought that from Australia, and because we wanted somewhere to live when we first got here, and then we wanted to take our time to find our primary residence.
Gotcha.
So we did what we did in Cleveland back in 2012, which was buy a duplex, renovate it, live in one side, rent out the other, have the tenant pay your mortgage and all your expenses.
Mm-hmm.
Basically replicated that in 2021. And so we lived in one side for 6 months. We renovated both sides, rented out the other side, lived in the one side for 6 months. And then we bought our primary residence and we turned the side that we were in into an Airbnb.
Very, very smart. See, audience, you can see why I wanted her on the show. She is a smart cookie, and I'm just so very impressed with you. And even more impressive is I love your designs that you do. And I actually, just so you know, I stole a couple of your designs for a new build I'm working on right now that came directly from you. So,
Oh, that's good to know.
absolutely. So let's dive in. We are talking about a gorgeous property and it's called Boomerang Ranch. So first of all, why is it called Boomerang Ranch?
Okay, so you know a boomerang,
Yes.
right? The shape. So
Yes.
the house was actually a U shape, which is uncommon in
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland. So it did stand out to me. It's not uncommon in Australia. So that's what we call it in Australia, basically, is a boomerang. We don't say ranch in Australia, it's just a boomerang house,
Oh, okay.
just due to the shape.
I actually stayed in one of the same shape in Maui and I loved it because you kind of had like a little courtyard area in between and you could see
Yeah.
across. And so I
Mhm.
do actually really like that design. So
Yeah.
let's dive into this project and give us just a description of the property. How many beds and baths? What year was it built? Anything weird about the property? Let's hear about it.
Okay. So it was advertised as a 3 bedroom, 2.5 bathroom.
Okay.
The four, the fourth room had a laundry in it. So they weren't saying that it was a bedroom. Easy fix. So I was like, ding, okay. So anyway, it was advertised as a 3 bedroom, 2.5 bathroom, 1973, mid-century modern ranch.
Built in 1973?
Yes, built in
Okay.
1973.
And the square
Yep.
footage?
Just under 2,300.
Okay.
High vaulted ceilings, which I loved.
Ooh.
Yeah. Had this, oh, it was on a quiet cul-de-sac, which is always good, especially for when you're wanting to sell. Well, not wanting to, but especially when it's very attractive to families, a quiet
Yes.
cul-de-sac. In an affluent neighborhood
Okay.
called Moreland Hills, really good school district. All your amenities are nearby. You've got your Whole Foods, you've got a cinema, you've got really nice luxury like retail, right near a good enough a distance away, but close to a highway entrance, so you can
Okay.
get anywhere quick.
Nice.
Just a really good location. I actually live nearby, and
Okay.
so that's kind of why I've sort of mostly done my flips in that area. Is I'm a mum of three, and so I need to logistically just be able to. I can't drive too far at this stage of my life, so
Girl,
yeah.
I agree. I get so excited when we have a flip and it's literally 5 minutes away because
Yeah.
we've done the ones that are an hour and a half away and no one's
I
got
don't know
time for
if I
that.
could. I just think
Uh-uh.
about how much I go there all the time because I'm so
Yes.
hands-on. I just don't know if I could.
And I don't even have kids and I'm complaining about it. So I can't imagine dragging along three kids. But
Yeah.
well, how did you find this property, Simone?
So I actually had originally a wholesaler reached out to me.
Okay.
I didn't know them. They reached out to me a couple of times. I did ignore them just because I just finished a flip around the corner and it was a really big one and literally just had finished it. And then they were sending this to me and most of the wholesale deals I've been sent in the past haven't made sense at all. The
Right.
numbers, and it's just rubbish. And so I was away, I think, and I was like, whatever. And then a couple of weeks had gone by and they had reached out again, but I was back in town. And so I was like, all right, let me look at this thing. And I looked at it and I was like, oh. And so then I did a drive by. I was like, oh, it's a Boomerang Ranch. And so And then I said, okay, fine, let's look at it. And so I met with him, we looked at it. I immediately saw the potential and was kind of like, gosh, I can't believe I didn't jump on this sooner. Well, I'm thankful that it's still here. And so then I put an offer in at 307.
What were they asking?
They were asking 320.
320. Okay.
320.
And just so the audience knows, you can negotiate with wholesalers. A lot of people think that that is their bottom line number, but the fact that this guy seeked you out afterwards too kind of also makes me think, I bet there's some negotiation techniques that you can imply here. So you got it for, what'd you say, three what?
Well, so I was telling him my price is 307, best and final. I'm not kind of doing the back and forth thing. And then he was trying to get me to pay more. I said, absolutely not. I know this market. I know how much it's going to cost. It doesn't make sense. I'm not doing it for 1 cent more. Like, that's it. And so then whoever, I don't understand fully. I know wholesaling it's all different and confusing and it's not transparent. So I don't know who owned, so a real estate agent actually owned the deal and she was sending it out to wholesalers within her office to see what they could get. But they were trying to take too much off the top, and so it didn't make sense. And so then that realtor decided to go onto the MLS. And so within 20 seconds of it being on the MLS, I put in an offer, same offer, 307, but no one was taking anything out of that. And then I got it. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, patience is a virtue, and sometimes it's best to wait, and it worked out in your favor here. So I love that. What was when you did the first walkthrough, what do you think was your estimated ARV at time of purchase? And ARV for the audience members is after repair value. After repair value. Very good. So what did you think was the ARV at time of purchase?
Well, I've flipped in the area before, so I'm well versed. So the ARV was like for sure 650, like for sure I would get 650, and I was wanting to sort of more get around the 695.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. And what were the repairs or changes that you're going to do to the property? And I want to go back to how they had it listed as a 3-2, because this reminds me of a property we purchased. It was 1,600 square feet total, the property, but it was listed as a 2-2. I'm like, gosh, that is a pretty large house for only 2 bedrooms. And when you walk the property, you had to walk through 1 bedroom to get to the master bedroom or primary bedroom, however you're supposed to say it these days. But that's how they had to do it. Or another reason is having to do with septic systems. I don't know if you have septics in Cleveland, but sometimes, oh, it was, okay. So sometimes it's only a 3-bedroom septic. And so they can only list it as a 3-bedroom, even though there's obviously 4 bedrooms there. So just throwing that out there for the listeners. All right. So what were the changes, things that you're going to do, and what were the renovations you're going to make at time of purchase?
Yeah. Well, on that note, immediately moving the laundry.
Yep.
So I had to figure out, where am I going to move it? I could have put it in like a closet. I could have done a closet laundry. And then I was like, no, because this is going to be a 4-bedroom house. I need more than a closet laundry. The buyer is going to expect more than that.
Yeah.
This is probably going to be for a family, or potentially someone who has retired that wants single level living, but wants their grandkids and family to be able to come and stay. So in that note, a closet laundry wasn't going to work. So there was actually a dining room that was just off the garage, where you would walk through the garage door, past the dining room, past a half bath, and then to the kitchen. And I was like, I can easily put the dining room where the current living room is. There's room for it. So I'm actually going to convert the dining room into a laundry mudroom, as well as on the adjacent wall, I can have an office nook.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And then make it a 4-bedroom. And the septic system thing was not an issue, because the septic system had to be replaced. I already knew that. So
how much was that?
17.
Oh, wow. Goodness. Okay. Whew.
I know. That's actually a good price.
Yes, it is. They can go up to 2025. So, and that's 1,000 listeners, by the way, just so you're listening. All right. So you're just, you're not adding square footage, you're just kind of reconfiguring things. And then septic, what were other some big ticket items?
So there was a boiler system and no air conditioning. So I could have either repaired the boiler and added split systems or done a furnace and all new ducting. So part of that decision making goes into, okay, well, where would you put the ductwork? Is it going to be easy? Luckily, there was a crawl space. So ductwork was actually pretty simple.
Good.
So I decided to get rid of the boiler and upgrade to furnace and have central AC and heating.
Huge. And I bet that really helped with the price at the end as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
New roof, some new plumbing because I'm obviously relocating the laundry. I completely changed the layout of the kitchen because the way it was didn't function well. New electrical, not all new electrical at all because it's a 1973 house. So I'm not dealing with knob and tube or any of that stuff, thank God.
Yep.
But just some updated electrical, had to update a couple of panels, new hot water tank, new flooring. And then I actually was not removing walls in this house, but adding walls to accommodate that laundry and office nook. And then also framed in a wardrobe in the primary bedroom for additional closet space because I knew in that area from past experience that you've really got to have a lot of closet space because that's one thing that buyers will complain, like, even though I think it's great in that area, they're like, oh, it's not enough. So I had to frame in an extra closet just to get in front of those objections. Like whenever I go into a house, I think of myself as a buyer and go, okay, so what's some potential objections that they're going to have, and how can I get in front of that at the very beginning of this renovation, not have to deal with it when I'm trying to sell it. So one of the objections would be not enough closet room in the primary bedroom. So I framed in a wardrobe, an additional wardrobe. So there was a walk-in plus a wardrobe, a 10-foot long,
Nice.
2-foot deep wardrobe. The other issue was because there wasn't a basement, a lot of Clevelanders would think, where am I going to put all my stuff? So I actually opened up the ceiling because there was attic space above that you didn't have access to. So I actually opened up the ceiling and added an attic access ladder for storage. And then the garage was quite large, so I framed in a storage room in the garage to get in front of that objection.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that you put yourself in the buyer's shoes because as I was listening to you speak, I was getting ready to write down that is something that's so very important. And also, I think women are so successful in this industry because we're already thinking ahead to those type of things. And I know one thing that I do is I think, how am I walking in with all of my groceries? Where am I dropping off my keys? What do I have to do? And so you created that mudroom there where you know as a mom that that's where the kids are going to be dropping their backpacks off and things like that. And the fact that you needed a larger laundry room because you are in those shoes yourself. So I think that's really, really important. And you can, I know you're going to agree with me. You can see sometimes when men do the designs and you're like, yep, a guy did this one. So I love that you brought that up because I was literally like writing down the points and because it's just very important. And I had a designer teach me those things. It's the walking in from the garage or wherever from your car with groceries and how that path is going to work through the house. So super, super smart. All right.
Yeah, like even in the laundry, like, so I left the cabinetry that I chose in the laundry. I made it so that, and when I was selling it when I put my realtor hat on and I'm selling it, I'm explaining to people that if you wanted to go to Renovation and go and get a pull-out hamper system, really easy to install, this cabinet actually accommodates where you can do a pull-out hamper. So the kids can get home, they drop their stuff off, pull their socks off, put it straight into the hamper, the washing machine's right there. And then another thing that I did just on what you were saying, as far as like thinking through day-to-day life, is I actually framed in a butler's pantry in the kitchen. So extra storage, a butler's pantry with outlets so that you can put your coffee machine, your toaster, tuck away your stuff so you don't have to have it on the countertops. Another thing that I did. And I also added 2 decks, did the septic system. I did all new windows, new flooring. Yeah, quite a bit.
And another thing I really liked are the light fixtures that you fix with, even
Yeah.
from the exterior light fixtures. I'm like, oh, I love that. So, what was the number you had for those renovations? What were they going to cost you?
Yep. So initially I was at 195.
Wow. And we'll get into to that. So, how did you finance this deal?
So this was hard money.
Okay.
So Yavi.
Okay.
So they funded 90% of the purchase price and then 100% of the rehab.
And how did you cover that last 20 or 10%, excuse me?
My money.
Your money. Gotcha. So,
Yeah.
and also for the listeners, if you are doing that, some of these hard money lenders will allow second positions, and then you can literally purchase, renovate, and sell a property without having any money come out of your pocket. But that also helps you with interest rates and things of that sort. And you have a little bit more leverage with that hard money lender when that money is truly coming from you. So excellent. What was your projected timeline?
Projected is what it was. So in Cleveland, there's very much a seasonality in real estate because of the snowy winters. You don't want to be selling a place in December, January, like
Right.
really November, December, January, February, if you can help it. So usually like for a flipper, it's a really great time to buy in December because whoever's selling needs to sell.
Yep.
Otherwise you wouldn't be selling then. So I bought this place in September. I knew I didn't want to list it until March, spring, because it wasn't going to be to my benefit. So, and it worked out well because I knew it was going to be a 5 or a 6 month renovation.
Okay. And I love that you said that too, because that's a huge nugget for listeners is they think the month of December, it actually starts right around Thanksgiving, and you can negotiate so much easier during those months because it does typically slow down. But I have sold properties during those months, but agreed, because of winter, it is quite a bit slower.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get into the nitty gritty. Were there any surprises during the renovation?
Not really any surprises, just because like at this point, I for this house, I actually didn't get a formal inspection. I sometimes I do an inspection, sometimes I don't.
Oh
But
my
it's just
gosh.
because of my knowledge.
Please tell me your coach told you to get an inspection.
Yes, she did. No, so I mean, I had one of my contractors come with me.
Good.
So there was nothing formal that happened. I myself, from the renovations that I've done to date, I know what to look out for. So he was there with me. We looked at some things. It all looked pretty good, but there was one thing that came up, but it wasn't a big deal, is in the crawl space, and one side of the crawl space, there was some seepage coming in the front corner, but it wasn't groundwater. So I didn't have to do a bunch of drainage or anything really expensive. It was more coming from clogged gutters.
Ah,
And the grading was all wrong in that corner. And then there was also a leaking hose line,
okay.
water tip line.
Yeah,
So,
because water can be one of the most damaging items when you are doing a renovation. So glad you caught
yeah.
that. And yeah, very, very good. All right. Well, I already know how this project turned out, but what was the listing price once you completed it?
So listing price, I did 715. Yeah.
Okay. Because you originally, excuse me, you originally saw that it was going to be, you're very confident with the number 650.
Yeah, I wouldn't have listed it at that.
No.
That's for sure.
But you said, I'm sure I could get closer to that 695, but you ended up listing it, you said 715.
Yeah.
And how long was it on the market?
There was a lot of umming and ahhing about the listing price. And it's like, do you do that philosophy where you go in at, I could have gone in at 695, so there wasn't a 7 in front.
Yep.
Or do you come in confident at that with a 7 in front, but early 7s? Nobody has a crystal ball, and you just got to go with your gut. And my gut was that this was a really special property. Really, like, I'm not just saying that. It's a very special property. The format and the layout of it was really efficient. Obviously, there was a lot of design that went into it. And so I was like, I'm going to go in at 7:15. I could have gone in at 7:30, but then I was like, nah, I think that's pushing it. So I did 7:15.
And you are now wearing your real estate agent hat for this one. Do you have your GC license?
In Cleveland, you don't need a GC license.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah.
Because I did see you wear all these different hats, which I think is really important. But you are so good at all of it. And just to kind of take a step to the side here, why was it important for you to get your real estate license?
Money. So to save on commissions. That's all it is. So I have my license and it is purely just for me when I'm buying and selling to save on commissions.
Huge. And also to get access to the MLS, because there is some information on there, yes, that you can't get. And how did you determine what agency to hang your license with?
So the flip around the corner from this place that I did, there was an agent that came in that was just helping their friend out when I bought it. So the seller's agent, when I was buying the flip before this one, she couldn't make it to one of my inspections, I guess. So it was under contract. And so she sent her friend in who was from another agency to just help her out and open it up for me so I could go in and do my measurements and stuff that I needed to do. And I got to talking to him and he was a really just awesome guy. And so we actually became friends. And he told me about the agency that he's with and how good it is for investors and sort of talked me through it. And so then I ended up joining his agency that he's with.
And I'm bringing this up because there are so many real estate investors who want to save money. We also own an agency as well. I don't have my real estate license. I made Vance get it because I don't have the patience of most of these real estate agents out there. But it saves so much money on commissions. But I love that you brought that up because there's a fine line, because you have like the legit agents who want you to sit in the office for a couple hours a week and do things like that. So it is important to find an agency that is supportive of investors. So thank you for allowing me to take a little side note there. So let's get back to Boomerang Ranch here. And you listed it for $715. How long was it on the market before did you get multiple offers? Did you get one good offer?
I did,
tell us about that.
Yeah, so I got multiple offers and I ultimately ended up going with an offer that was for above ask. The other one was a cash offer at ask. And then I got an above ask offer, which involved a conventional loan. So then you've got that thinking around, okay, so I know I'm pushing it with not pushing it, that's what it's worth. As far as that, when there's bank lending involved, there's going to be an appraisal versus with cash, you don't have to worry about that. So I was looking at the two offers and they both wanted inspections, which good, do your due diligence. That's great. I'd prefer that. And I'm very careful with everything I do to get in front of any potential inspection issue. So I wasn't worried about inspections, but the thing was the appraisal. And so I ultimately ended up going with the above ask offer, not because it was above ask, but because of the position of the buyer. So the buyer was very motivated to buy within a certain time frame because they were relocating from Connecticut and they had a family, and so they had this like timeline that they had to stick to. They were trying to sell their house. There was all this stuff happening for them. They were very motivated. They didn't want to mess around.
Right.
The other one was a little more like not as under a time crunch, I guess. And so it was because of that reason that I ended up going with the conventional loan buyer. But the appraisal thing was a thing.
Yes.
And so I did, before accepting their offer, I said, whilst I believe the house is worth your $720 offer, in the event that the appraisal comes in lower, would you be willing to do an appraisal gap?
Right.
Which they were, but they put a limit on it of a $20,000 appraisal gap. And so I was happy with that.
Okay. Wonderful. And that is a lot for the listeners to take in. And I think in negotiating, there are so many more tools than a price. And I love that you brought all of those things up because that can really help buyers in the negotiating process to come up with different reasons or different sales tactics and things like that. So thank you very much for bringing those up. All right. So let's break down the final numbers here. So you estimated repairs to be at 195. What were your actual repairs?
205.
Oh my gosh, girl, I'm so jealous. That is nothing. That is amazing. So 205, very good. And do you remember how much interest you were paying?
Yeah, so I've got all these figures for you. So
Okay.
interest is 33,000,
Okay. And holding costs?
was 9,500.
Okay, that's not too bad at all.
Yeah.
Commissions?
13.
Okay. And that's to the buyer's agent. And
Yes.
closing costs.
8,000.
Okay. And then you went with, what was the sales price? What was the final sales price?
Yep, so 710, 5,000.
Very nice. And your total profit, drum roll.
It was a 20% return on investment, which is what we target.
Yes.
I think it was like 19.95%. I just rounded it up to 20, which was 120,000.
I got to get that
I
again.
love that.
Girl, I am so proud of you. That is amazing. And I ask people to say all of those numbers because if some random person is listening to flipping houses and you bought it for this and you sold it for this, they think you make all that money in between. But
No.
that's a lot of carrying costs and interest and all that stuff. So bravo to you, Simone. That is a fabulous, fabulous. And I also, because I watched this progress and the whole time I was like, oh my gosh. And like I said, I was taking notes to all of your design because it was absolutely beautiful. And something that you do so well is your social media because you have flippers out there who will flip it and spit it right back out. But you really nurtured the entire experience and shared it with people who follow you on social media. And it actually led you to being featured into a magazine with this property. So tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so I guess everybody's different as to what they're trying to achieve. Like if you're trying to just do a mass produced like BIM, get these houses out there and that's your thing, that's absolutely great. That's your thing. For
Right.
me, at this point of my life, with my experience and where I'm at, what's important for me is not to just like produce a product and pump it out. I actually get a lot of intrinsic value from the creative aspect of it. I am an artist. I paint. I've had paintings commissioned. And so but I didn't make a lot of money from it at all. And so I've always tried to think like, how can I combine my business side of me, which I love, with my creative side and make money? And so this allows me to do both, which is awesome. So for me, I put a lot of like heart and soul into every house and I think about who's going to buy it and how's it going to work for them. And I really want them to love it. And so I guess that passion did kind of like shine through. And then Haven Lifestyle Magazine reached out to me and asked if I would like to be featured in their magazine.
Oh my goodness. That is
Yeah.
so exciting. And
Yeah.
what is Haven Magazine?
It's a lifestyle home decor magazine. So they feature
Oh my
properties of a certain, what's the word? Like
caliber.
caliber.
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah.
So I didn't realize you're an artist. By the way, the picture, the painting, when you first walk in, tell me about that piece.
Yeah. So that's not mine.
Okay.
My stager did that. And so she also does paintings, and I only just found out. So she's staged all my properties that I've done. Because when you find a good one, you stick with them. We enjoy
Absolutely.
working together. She's awesome. And so she's done all my properties. So we work really well together. It's fun. That's also important to me at this point in my life. And so she actually, for the first time, brought in some paintings that she had done. And she was like, this painting shows really well in photos. And
Oh my
I've actually
goodness.
had a couple of people talk to me about that particular painting.
Yes.
So it is, yeah, she did that.
It was gorgeous.
Yep.
So I want to get a little bit into the design features of this property. And you did something, I mean, people call it vision boards, things like this, but you call it a mood board. So explain to the audience what a mood board is and then how it evolved into some of the design features that you did for Boomerang Ranch.
Yeah. So a mood board is like the mood or the energy, the overall like feel that you want for your project, whether it's a house, whether it's a painting, whether it's whatever. So I guess what do people do? They do their vision boards, right?
Yep.
For their life. So that's kind of like the feel, that's the kind of things that you want to achieve. It's high level ideas of what you're wanting to achieve. So same deal with the mood board. It's just kind of it's the feeling that you want for that house. I knew that this was obviously a mid-century modern, just from the era, the design, that was clear. So I was leaning into that, but I didn't want it to be like cliche mid-century modern where you're like, whoa, oh, that's mid-century modern. It just needed to like be a nod to it,
Nice.
not overbearing, nice. And so mid-century modern is around bringing nature in. So I knew there had to be greens and just sort of like natural stones and natural colors and things like that. And I actually reached out to one of my friends who lives in the area who is an interior designer. And I asked her if she would kind of like consult or like bounce around ideas with me throughout the project on an hourly basis. And she said, absolutely, yes, that'll be so much fun. So her and I got to kind of collaborate on some of the ideas. And if I was choosing a light fixture, it was really nice to have her kind of bounce that off of and say,
Right.
I'm thinking about this light fixture. What do you think? And she would kind of like give her opinion. And so that was nice to do that on this project.
Very nice. And I think when you make a mood board like that and you put everything in one place where you can look at it, it really gives an overall cohesiveness towards the project. And so that everything ties together, you have different features here and there, but then as a whole, it just absolutely works. And one of the things that I really want to do in my new build that we have going on is all the fluted accents that you had. So you did not put them in normal places. Explain where you put these fluted accents.
Yeah, I don't know if this is like my Australian stuff that I'm bringing in, because sometimes there's things that I do that I think are normal, and then people here are like, what? I've never seen that before. I don't know if that was my Australian influence or what, but yeah, I just wanted to. So the shaker white cabinets that I do in kitchens, I have a really great supplier for that. Ideally, you wouldn't do that for a mid-century modern. You would do flush cabinets.
Yep.
But I just couldn't get past the price. And this is the balancing of the designer arts side of it with the business side. So I thought I can't spend that kind of money on these flush cabinets. I got an awesome supplier where I get a great price for these shaker cabinets. I got to go with them, but I got to do something to balance out the traditional like shaker to kind of help it be a little bit more mid-century modern or modern. And so how I did that was with the lines in the fluting on the back of the peninsula.
Yep.
And then last minute decision was on the side of the fridge panel as well. And then I followed that into the kitchen nook as well.
Yes.
So that it all felt like it was one space.
And there's actually, I have a neighbor who is helping me with some design stuff and she will be staging it. So I do get the whole having to bounce things off of. And I have a little nook area and she's like, oh, you need a seated area. And I'm like thinking, oh my gosh, Simone did this too. But we did not do that one just because it is actually a much larger area and we'd have to have a special table built. And again, if the people moving in, that's not what they want, that's not, so we went against it. But I love that you put it on the back of the island or peninsula section of the cabinetry, kind of where you would kick your feet if you're sitting at a bar stool, but then you tied it into the other area where the nook was. And I just thought it was so tastefully done and just a really, really great job. And your light fixtures that you did. You had an accent wall, but the accent wall wasn't just a blue wall. What else did you do to that wall in the primary
Yeah.
bedroom?
So I did that.
Wow.
And with my contractor, we both
Okay.
did it together. But I found on Pinterest, I found this really cool, simple, like it looks difficult, but not. So I've just found this it was actually very simple. You've just got 1x2s that you're staggering at different heights, and that fed into. So instead of just doing a green feature wall, I was like, I want to add
Oh,
some
was it green?
dimension to
Gosh,
it.
I thought it was blue in
Yeah.
my brain. Okay, I'm sorry. Green,
Yeah.
excuse me.
Well, it was TIAGA Sherwin-Williams, which is like it's a green, but there is kind of like a blue under
Okay.
like undertone to it. So I didn't want to just do a plain wall. I totally could have, but this was a really fun, creative one for me, and so I just wanted to do it. And so yeah, just really easy, simple 1x2s nailed, glued, and then nailed onto the wall, staggered at different heights. And it just, the lines of that fed into the peninsula lines,
Yep.
in the kitchen,
Yep.
so that it would kind of like, even though buyers don't notice that, they walk in and go, it feels good. They don't know why, but it's intentional. Those lines feed into the lines that are in the kitchen that fed into the lines that were on the feature wall in the office stock.
Huge. I'm so impressed. And there is a fine line sometimes between some house flippers who put all of their personal touches on everything, and it actually ends up limiting your buyer's pool. But what you did was so beautifully done, and exactly the buyers walking and thinking, I don't really understand this, but I feel amazing in this house because of all the cohesiveness between the different patterns and everything. And it was just so tastefully done. Simone, I am so very impressed with you and so proud of you for all of this that you have done. So thank you so much for sharing this. And final question, after completing this project, what were some of the takeaways for you?
So yeah, so the main takeaway for me was around striking, that something that I always learn something each time. But for this one in particular, I was aware of or trying my best, and then, yeah, was around striking that balance between doing things that is the buyer is going to love and they'll
Yeah.
have that emotional connection to, and they're going to want to buy the property. To, does that translate? So if you're getting a lending buyer, they're going to need an appraisal. Does that, like, sure, the buyer's going to love it, but is that going to add value for an
Right.
appraisal? Because you could find yourself in a position where you've done all this stuff, the buyer loves it, they give you this amazing price, and then the bank does their appraisal and it doesn't appraise, and then you've just done all that stuff for nothing.
Right.
So it was just kind of striking that balance of doing things, being very intentional, being like, I know that that's probably not going to add to the appraisal value, but it will add to the emotional buy-in of the buyer. It's not going to cost me that much. I think it's worth it. Or being like, okay, I want to use terrazzo here in the house somewhere. Let me just use that expensive tile in a very small area instead. Or could I potentially get something that looks like terrazzo but isn't, and no one's going to know the difference? That was probably
Absolutely.
my main takeaway, is like balancing that thing of like doing things that buyers are going to love with, if it adds to the appraised value.
And very important to think that, because there are people out there who over renovate and then they lose their asses at the end because they can't reap that value back. So
Yeah.
Simone, great job. Thank you for sharing this project with us. And if they want to see this property, how would they find it? Do you have a website that you have it featured on? Can they find the magazine, or like how do they find it?
I probably need to add it to my website, which is moserhomes.com. But they can go to my Facebook and they'll see recent posts around it with the listing link, but I will add it to my website.
Very good. All right. Well, we are going to move to the second part of the podcast, which is what makes Simone Lesko a badass. And clearly you are. So the first letter is B for book. What is a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
So there's a few, but I wanted to talk about James Van Praagh. I don't know if James Van Prague,
Psychic?
well-renowned psychic. Yep.
Yes.
And
Okay.
written a bunch of books. So he wrote a book. I've read all his books. They're all have made an impact. But one in particular, I guess, is called Unfinished Business, What the Dead Can Teach Us About Life. So he shares stories from spirit about their regrets in life and what they have learned from the other side and how we can benefit from their experiences. And so for me, I guess reading this book kind of just gave me perspective on, it's a little bit morbid, but it's like, we're all going to die.
Right. We are.
We are.
Yes.
Like the two sure things in life are we're going to pay taxes and we're going to die.
Exactly.
And so when you're scared to do that thing, sometimes that helps me to remember that, like, I'm going to die one day. No one's going to care. Just do it. Like, you don't want to be on your deathbed and have
regret
that you didn't go on the Jen Josey podcast because you were too scared.
Well, I am glad you did. And I don't know how I remember him. Did he have like a talk show or something at some point, James Van Prague?
He actually, I think he co-produced a TV series with Jennifer Garner in it. No, not Jennifer Garner. Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Oh, yes. Yes. I know exactly what. Thank you for saying that. And she wore some really great clothes in that. I can't even think of what it's called. Anyway,
I'll remember later.
I know. We'll be 3 more questions down and I'll blast it out. But all right, moving on here. The first A in badass is for advice. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Yeah, so I guess it's not advice more, but just kind of something that I've thought to myself just through my life experiences, and I've told myself, I guess it's advice from myself, is that, and particularly in this flipping space, real estate space, is you can be in the middle of a renovation and you're freaking out because something's happened. You don't know. There's no solution. Everything's going to hell. In that moment, just remember that there's always a solution to every problem, pretty much. You may not know it in the moment.
Right.
But just sleep on it, do some research, ask some people, and you'll solve it. And so just everything will be all right. So that would be one. And then the second thing in this space that we're talking about now is that everything is learnable. So just because you're maybe new and you're thinking, oh, all these people, they know all this stuff, there's no way, I don't know. Blah, blah. Everything is learnable. Everyone started from the beginning. If you want to, you can learn it.
Absolutely. Those limiting beliefs. And by the way, I had to look it up. It's Ghost Whisperer.
Oh, that was it. Yes.
I was like, I got to remember because she dressed so cute during those shows. Anyway, I digress. Okay. The D in badass is for drive. What drives you to be successful?
Is to be a role model for my kiddos. That's really important. I think that's the best way to teach your kids is to demonstrate it. You don't have to always like talk about it. Just do the thing. And then they're watching.
Absolutely. They're always watching.
Always watching. So that is a big one. And I think that I'm just a quiet achiever. I don't make a big deal about it. I just get it done. It's just a mindset that I have where failure is not really an option. There's nobody coming to save me. It's me. And it's just a mindset.
Well, I love it. And it's very evident in all that you do. And you got some lucky kiddos as well, because you live it. You live this every day. And that's definitely a great example for them. All right. And my light just went out. That was weird. Okay. The second A in badass is for aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on?
I want to do my first new build. You're talking about that. You're doing that now. You're
going to love it. You are going to love it.
Yeah.
So our first new build, I'll just tell you this quickly, was on accident because we were kind of known in the area to do what's called pop the top, where you take a ranch property, you remove the roof, you add a second floor, maybe go out the back a little bit. And I had a wholesaler bring me this one property and he's like, every other house in the neighborhood is 2 stories except for this one. It's a perfect pop the top. Like, sweet, we bought it. And we had that intention. And then our engineer said, you were talking about the front corner of Boomerang Ranch with the water penetration. it had too much water in the crawl space, so it would not support a second floor. So we actually did our first new build on accident, and it was a tear down rebuild. We have never taken undeveloped land and then do that. So is that what you're going to go for? Or are you going to do like a tear down rebuild? Tell me what you're looking for.
Yeah, well, that was quite the pivot you had to do there.
Oh, scared the hell out of me.
I
But
bet.
when we sold it, it was at perfect timing, and the market just it was our largest profit to date, which is going to inspire you
Oh,
to do the next one.
nice.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, I mean, that's why I wanted to get into new builds, because I've renovated existing properties where you walk in, you do not know what's behind the walls, who did
Yes.
it, how bad is it. So there's just such a high risk there that you have to have quite a big contingency fund. My theory is, I mean, I enjoy the process of like reimagining something,
Right.
but my thought is that new builds must be less risky because you're doing it from the beginning. You know it's done right. You're controlling every aspect of it. And so naturally, I was like, yeah, I want to get into new builds, design it just how I want, like amazing layouts, really functional. So that's I mean, the renovations that I've done have been all large. So I've pretty much done almost new builds minus the excavating and doing the foundation part.
All right.
So I'm almost there. So that's a logical next step for me. And
You
then
are
I would
going to
also
love
like,
it.
I can't wait. I'd also like to do a commercial multifamily purchase.
Woo! Very
Yeah.
nice. So are you going to buy land, or are you going to buy a tear down rebuild?
Whatever's the
Whatever.
best thing. Yeah. So if there's land available in an area that it all works out, then great. If there is a house for sale where it's priced appropriately, knowing I got to tear it down, then I would do that. The good thing is it should have utilities and all that sort of stuff hooked
Yes.
already. So it just depends. Either.
Gotcha. And way to keep an open mind on that. And like I said, you are going to love it because you are not tied into how am I going to change this laundry room
Yeah.
and move this and do it right the first way you do it. So there's no surprises with it.
Yeah.
Girl, you got this. All right. The first S in badass is for systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
So every renovation that I've done, I've tweaked my project management plan. So I guess I like to compound my learning from each one so that I can exponentially keep rolling. So I've I've gotten my project management plan, I've got a well thought out timeline. I've learned from the past, this needs to happen first because if you don't do this first, it's going to hold things up at the end and then you got to
Right.
redo this because you should have done it after that. So it would just be a well thought out project management plan.
Very, very good. All right. Simone, I have not been able to hang out with you in quite a while since the Homeschooled by Tarek program shut down. And this has been so amazing. And I could continue talking to you. But the final S in badass is for success. What does success mean to Simone Lesko?
Success means to me freedom of choice. So
Huge.
I don't have aspirations. I don't want to go and be a billionaire. I don't want to do that because I know what it takes. And I'm not willing to sacrifice what it takes for that. But I do sacrifice and I do work hard and I am resilient and I have a very good work ethic and I am very driven and I have to be careful with that. I got to like be careful because I do have children and I've got to just keep it all balanced and in check as best as I can. But I am naturally like I take on more than I should or whatever. But so freedom of choice, which means to me that my kids have what they need and they don't go without. Like if they want to do an extracurricular activity, then absolutely we can afford that. If we want to, want us to continue to be able to travel and have awesome experiences as a family and the freedom of choice of choosing a project or not choosing a project, doing what I love, getting that not only financial reward, but also the intrinsic value from the things that I'm doing. That's what it means to me.
Well, I am so very impressed with you, and audience members, you could see why I wanted her so bad on the show today. You are fabulous. You have so much to give back to your community. Cleveland is so lucky to have you, and by changing it one property at a time, I'm so impressed. So Simone, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, Jen. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And you are fabulous, by the way. So that is all. And thank you for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josey by visiting therealjenjosey.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.